Are you ready for the next step in your career? Do you feel like you're in a place where you're seeking guidance, but not getting it? Are you leading a team that just isn't listening and you're not getting the results you need? Is it time for you to sharpen your leadership skills? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to the What Do You Stand For podcast.
Welcome to the What Do You Stand For podcast, the place where emerging leaders in hospitality come to be informed, inspired, and transformed. Hello, everybody. My name is Arthur Keith, and I am proud to be the host of this podcast. I am joined today by two members of the squad. We have Jerry with us. Say hello, Jerry.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. And then DJ, Daryl, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's glad to be back today. I'm glad to be here.
And today, because, while we bring in an interesting perspective on things, we wanted to liven the show up and went and searched far and abroad to find a brilliant mind to kind of join the team today. And today we have a special guest joining us, Dave Roberts. Hello, Dave.
Woohoo! Hello. Thank you for the invite to be with you. Hello, everybody. Hello to all the listeners.
Hey, Dave.
So Dave, since you're here, I gotta say a few things just to say Dave is I'm just gonna say Dave is really, really, really smart. He's a smart dude. Glad to have him with us. He's taught at Virginia Tech as well as and he's currently teaching at Cornell University. So he's smart. I like to say, I'm not gonna say he's old. I'm gonna say he's seasoned. He's a seasoned hospitality leader. He's retired from Marriott. His last role there was Senior Vice President of Revenue Strategy and Solutions. Well, that's a title. Where he was Global Leader of Revenue Management, Analytics, and a bunch of other stuff. He has legit credentials. He has a BS, an MS, an MBA, and a patent. Did I get that right?
Woo! That is all correct.
That's all legit. And, not that that's enough stuff for him. In his spare time, he enjoys martial arts and astronomy.
Nice.
So he can kick butt and just stargazer.
Ad astra per astra. Okay.
There you go. So thank you, Dave. Thank you for joining us. We're thrilled to upgrade the talent on our side of this podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Today, we're going to respond to a question from a listener. Barbara from Chicago, who works for a boutique hotel in Chicago, reached out to us, and I'm going to kind of summarize her question. It was basically, she's a supervisor. She's eager to learn and grow, and she's working for, as I said, a boutique hotel, and she's trying to get recognized for her talents. But her company is a small company with limited resources. So she feels she's got limited opportunities to grow. And she wants to know what she should do to develop herself, to grow, and to get recognized. So with that question in mind, we're kind of titling today's podcast, Big Talent, Small Company. And I'd like to believe that her situation is not an uncommon dilemma. There's certainly in the hospitality space, there's many people working for small companies. And often, they love those companies. They want to be a better leader, love the culture, love the energy. But, often there's a sense that, the resources aren't there. And, so if you find yourself in that scenario, many are asking themselves, what do I do? I don't know what I do. Who do I reach out to? And what should I focus on to develop myself? So our challenge today is kind of talk to those issues. And really, I want to just kick things off with a question for the gang of three today. The first question is, what's the upside of working for a small company versus a big company?
The upside would be is that it's more intimacy. You or everybody's a little bit more closer. You got better relationships on a small company. And a small company, it's almost like a family. You can kind of say, hey, here's the general manager or the manager there. You can talk to them personally about some things that you can work on or some things that you want to, or ask them how they got to their level.
Yeah, for me, I think one of the upsides is the opportunity to learn business in general from all levels. And then, of course, honing in on what it is that you're there to do, what it is, the job that has been selected for you and that you've chosen to do. Eventually, when you're in on the ground floor, there's an opportunity for you to grow within that organization. You never know which direction you're going to grow. So learn as much as you can and just soak it all up.
I think from the perspective of personal development, it's likely that a large company probably has more resources available to you in terms of training and learning, with the enormous caveat that it's not the case that big companies are rolling in cash. And it's also not the case that the existence of those things means that you take advantage of them. So no matter what your situation, big company, small company, anywhere in between, whatever is out there in terms of resources, it's on you individually to go get it. And to take full advantage of that. I would say an upside of working at a small company is the ability to apply new things that you've learned, and that you have quite a bit more latitude across different functional areas in a small organization than you would have in a big company. And if that's an advantage that you enjoy, take full advantage of that. That's one in the plus column. Take it.
So are you guys saying there's more advantages to working for a small company than a big company?
I think there's just a lot of a leeway on a smaller company. You don't have to worry about so much red tape.
Having worked at a couple of large companies for 29 years, red tape is a real thing. I will say whether you're at a big company, small company, or anywhere on that continuum, in terms of career development, career advancement, personal development, find a boss or a mentor who is looking out for you. That's a lot easier said than done. And it may be easier to find that person at a small company because of the personal relationships. But even if you work at an enormous company, find a boss who has a very high priority on you and your personal development, and you will go places if you can find that person.
Sounds like I hear you all saying that one of the upsides is access to leadership, and perhaps access to see things that you wouldn't see in a big property. If access is the upside, on some level, that's also the downside, because if you don't have great leaders around you, you may have access to them, but they don't have the personalities or the commitment. I mean, that access can be real frustrating. You may be around somebody, and I've seen this in small businesses where it's not as though a tough leader fades in a small business. Tough leaders or difficult leaders in small businesses tend to shine a bigger light because there's fewer other leaders around them, if that makes sense. Right. So that access, or that direct access and constantly being in the presence could be a major downside to that in a small business, and figuring out how you not let that get to you and how you find that leader. I think Dave said, find that leader who's going to pour in you, who's going to be that positive example. And, you may have to get creative in how you do that.
When I recall working for some smaller companies, I think the biggest challenge I had was just to your point, saying access, but it was limited on the amount of access that I had. And it's like, I know where I want to go in my career at the time. I said, hey, I want to be a general manager of a hotel resort. And in a smaller hotel, it was kind of hard to do that. So I had to kind of reach out beyond those boundaries, outside the walls of where I worked, and started tapping into some of those leaders who belong to other organizations. I would reach out to people at those organizations and kind of interview and talk to them about how they got to where they are. They kind of helped me understand. So I didn't accept the idea of being at a small company. You do have to take control of your own personal development. And so I basically had to look outside of that by, finding my own mentors. I tapped into several of the professionals to help me in areas I needed to grow in. One of the downsides of also working as a small company is I would probably say in many companies, is a lot of times you have leaders or people who don't know how to tap in or inspire those new leaders. Because you have some people who are talented, they just haven't hit that button yet in terms of inspiring them to go to the next level. They're great people. They have the potential to be great things, but sometimes the leader that's in charge doesn't know how to tap into that potential.
I think I've heard all of you say, "Hey, take control and kind of own it." Well, what if I'm brand new and I'm just learning? I don't have a clue. So how do I know what I'm taking control of? I mean, where do I start figuring it out?
This podcast is directed at emerging leaders, and when you get started in your career, it's not clear where to turn to learn things and pick up tips. One thing that's very helpful early on in your career is keep a notebook with you everywhere you go. Keep it next to your bed, keep it in your car, have it with you always, and write things down. One piece of advice I'll give for your newer listeners, newer in their careers, is if there's ever something that is said around you that you don't quite understand, and you don't feel like interrupting somebody to say, "Stop, can you explain this to me?" especially if it's in a group setting, write it down in your book and go look it up or go ask somebody. I like to reference that Disney movie Frozen, where that theme is let it go. Career tip, don't do that. Don't let it go. If there's something that's said that seems like it's relevant for your business and you don't even know what the word means, write it down. And at some point, follow up on those things. It could literally be one word. It could be an expression. It could be someone's name. Write those things down and follow up. Don't let it go.
I'm going to say, pull out your phone and record it in there. All right. Because my guess is most of our leaders that we're talking about have that device, that they're carrying it. Yeah, certainly back in the day when I was coming up, we had little cards that we carried around and we wrote notes on that, which nowadays feels so antiquated. And most folks probably can't even relate to that anymore, but you're absolutely right. Don't let that thought disappear. Don't lose that thought. Don't lose that opportunity, and come back to it.
To Dave's point, I would say that your leaders may not know how to, help you tap into that potential, but there are people outside of the organization that might be able to. If you want to excel, if you want to be successful, it's your job to take full advantage of every resource available to you. If that means tapping into a podcast or reading books, or if it means, especially at Cornell, you can take these, sit in on these great, trainings that are free and available to the public. You can go sit in on, listen to those things, but it is your responsibility to grow. If you choose not to do that, then that potential that you have inside you will die there.
Once you get to the point where you're aware and you recognize that you have talent, what do you do to nurture that talent? And if you're in a small company, is it truly difficult to do it in a small company? I've heard you all say it's, you can do it. You got an upside to being in a small company. It sounds like there's some downsides as well. Because there are limited resources, I'm just curious as what are the specific recommendations you would have for somebody who they themselves have recognized that they have some ability, but they want to really nurture it and they really want to develop it.
It's not only just knowing that you have that talent, recognizing it in yourself, but don't be afraid to try to, dip your toe in different things to see what it is that you are really talented at, if that makes any sense.
I think you're right on. So you're saying you recognize you have talent, try something new, try something different. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
That's right. Don't be afraid to fail. We talk about, think big, fail fast as part of your creed, Arthur. And I think that this applies specifically to what we're talking about right now with these new emerging leaders that are in small organizations, for that matter, in large organizations that feel lost. Use that passion and don't let that die. That's my thing. Don't let the passion die. Use it.
As I sit here and listen to you talk, Jerry, what pops in my head was when I was a young leader and I was working in one area and someone said to me, if you really want to grow, you need to move to this area. And I was at the front desk and someone said, you should go to the housekeeping. And I was like, I had never really considered housekeeping, and that's how unenlightened I was at that point. But he said, if you're going to be a leader in this industry, you should learn the back of the house.
Right.
And so he challenged me to go into a space that I was uncomfortable in. And it was the best thing that could ever have happened to me.
Yeah, to try and connect a couple dots here, I think the most important thing you can do for career progression, career advancement is to do an excellent job in the job that you're in. But
Right.
there's a lot of people that do an excellent job in the job that they're in. And the way to set yourself apart is learning and growing. And there's a couple ways to do that. One is to take on jobs that don't really fit your background exactly, where it's going to be a stretch. It's going to be a painful first few months, a very steep learning curve. That's a really good way to learn and to grow. And another way is personal development. Learn new things. Learn from people that are better than you are at something. Take an online course. Read articles online. Subscribe to industry publications. Track somebody that does a job that you might find interesting. All of that. The more effort you put into that, the better you're going to have, the better career success you're going to have. It really is about get comfortable being uncomfortable. The more you can do that, the better your career prospects are, in my opinion.
All of that is great. I always like to remind people and want to tell the listeners, begin with the end in mind. Like sit down and think big, dream big. What do you want to achieve? And write all that stuff down. And as you look to your career, as you take that daily step, well, you think it might take you 20 years to get there. It might take you 10 if you lead with passion and with a plan and do all those things you just said about learning and growing.
To that point, I hear Jerry talking to the concept of career paths. People figuring out, hey, as I sit back and look around the organization, who's a senior leader that I could see myself someday being? And that's kind of your end in mind. And then figuring out what's a career path to get me there. Yeah, I would say there's a bucket of, figure out where you want to be, then you say, okay, what are the operational things I need to know and the technical things I need to know in order to keep me on that path. And then certainly make sure you go out and learn those things. And then there's hey, in order for me to continue to grow, there's certain leadership skills I need to hone and develop, be it communication skills. It's how you develop people. It's how you lead people. And that leadership bucket is one that you don't always get, unfortunately, in the operation. Sometimes it may be attending a seminar, it may be online learning, and it may be from a coach. You can get leadership development from a lot of different sources. And then the third one, let's never lose sight of the fact that we work for businesses. And there's a profit and loss statement that comes out every month. And if you don't understand the business side of the industry, it can really stymie your career. So challenging or asking someone to help you begin to learn the profit and loss side of the business and starting with whatever department you're in, that's a great first step for anyone who's really interested in a leadership career in hospitality. Start learning the business side. Start seeing if you can see the P&Ls, even if it's just telephone page, if you're a PBX operator, but just start with, there's revenues that come in, there's expenses, and then at the bottom, there's an impact on the profit of the business.
There's a theme here to use a somewhat of an academic lens of you build your own curriculum. You decide what it is that you need to learn and get better at and model after, and you build that yourself. Don't count on your boss, your colleagues, even an HR department to do that for you. That's your curriculum and you own it. And decide what it is that you want. That's really important. And in my own experience, most people don't pay enough attention to that. And think about what it is that you actually want in the short term and long term. This applies more broadly to life in general, but it applies certainly to career management. Decide what it is that you want, and then build your curriculum that says this will get me to that point. And then the next step, it's just tenacity. Do it. Mm-hmm. Here's my curriculum. Go do it. And that's on you. Nobody's going to hold you accountable to that more so than you hold yourself accountable. You build your own curriculum and go do it.
And I love that. And Dave, I want to add something on top of that. Build your own curriculum. I want to challenge anyone out there who's serious about growing and as a leader in the industry. And if you're serious about your own personal development, force yourself to identify the most senior person in the organization that you have access to and schedule a meeting with them and tell them that you want to grow tell them what you're thinking about, share with them your curriculum, share with them your end goal, and ask them to support you in your effort. And you're going to be shocked at how many leaders are going to say, heck yeah. As a matter of fact, I want to give you access to so-and-so. And here's the reason why.
Yeah.
The vast majority of businesses out there are dying for leaders, and they can't find leaders. I mean, our industry suffers hugely from a shortage of great leaders and leaders coming into the pipeline. So get in front of the most senior leader and tell them, hey, put your hand up. I'm interested. I'm interested.
I wish I heard you say that 25 years ago. That would have been very helpful early on in my career. I'll tell you one very common perception when you get started in the business world is that you're competing with your coworkers for recognition, rewards, maybe promotions. And there's some truth to that. You are competing, but you are surrounded by people who would love to help you.
Yep.
And there's so much wisdom out there, and all you have to do is go ask for it, and it's there for the taking for free. It's remarkable what's out there. And most people don't realize that. I know I didn't early enough in my career. You're surrounded by wisdom, and they want to help you.
You think you're invisible, right? You think that you're just there and you're at this really low level and that you're invisible. Well, you are until you make yourself not invisible anymore. And so when you go and you approach someone, I know I, as a leader, really appreciate when someone comes to me and asks me for things, what we're talking about here. And I'm always like, wow, I really respect that person immensely. And it's an instant thought. It's an instant thought, just like that. I respect that person for reaching out. And I think that those of you who are listening today who need that, don't be afraid to go and get it. And if the first person doesn't respond to you that way, go to another one until you get the right people on your team.
Well, what do you do when you work for some people who if you ask that question that you were talking about, Arthur, can I learn something from them? What if they don't recommend or give you any suggestions or feeding?
I got an easy response to that one, Daryl.
What's that?
Well, Dave said earlier, you referred to a Disney movie. You said, let it go. You said, don't let it go. You said, write it down. In the case, if you go to a leader who doesn't respond and support you, let that one go. Let it go. Move on. Go next.
That's right.
You mind say next, move on to the next one. So because those leaders are out there, and you can find them. You can absolutely find them. So we're coming down the home stretch here, and before we wrap things up, we always like to ask our guests a question, and it's a question that's kind of central and core to what do you stand for podcast is all about. And the question we want to ask you, Dave, is, as a leader, what do you stand for?
I've been very passionate about this exact topic of personal development, the importance of that, and recognizing that early in your career. If you think about part of your job is to do an outstanding job in the role you have. Part of your job is to develop yourself and get better. That's your job, especially earlier in your career, but it continues forever. And it's a really important part of career development. And I've seen the difference that this approach, I could rattle off several names of people I've worked with that have put an emphasis on personal development, and their career has taken off. And there's actually a lot of research that backs this up too. In fact, Arthur, if I may take about 30 seconds and share a very interesting study that was done at the University of Florida. And they were these two researchers. They sent out surveys to almost 100,000 people across big companies, small companies, all levels, all different organizations. And what they were looking for is some people are exceptional at what they do, and some people are good at what they do. And they wanted to know, what's the difference? And they sent out all these surveys. And the first logical conclusion was, well, it must be the case that people who are exceptional are just really smart. They must have a higher IQ than the people who are good. And it turns out that that's not true at all. There's no difference in IQ. And it must be just the people that are exceptional are really hardworking. And it turns out that's not true either in terms of hours invested. There's no difference between the exceptional group and the good performers. There's no difference in IQ, and there's no difference in hours worked. They found exactly one common theme. The one common theme was that exceptional performers invested much more in themselves. It turns out about 5 times as much time and energy in their own personal development. That was the one and only difference across all levels, all types of organizations. The one theme is personal development. I feel very strongly about that. That was a very long answer to your question. Sorry.
No, I love it. I think that's a perfect point for us to kind of bring this podcast to a close on. In hospitality, we're always all about serving others. In this case of seeing our careers grow, it's okay with putting ourselves first and putting our personal development first, and we should do that. And I think we should do that, understanding that when we as leaders grow by putting ourselves first and putting our personal development first, our industry grows. Because when we grow as leaders, we have the ability to grow other leaders around us, and it just keeps our industry making sure we have a great environment for our guests and for our employees. So that is all we have time for.
What?
Yeah, I know. Can you believe that? That went fast. I know. We unpacked it. Some good stuff. I love that. Don't be invisible. Chart your own curriculum. Figure out what your end goal is, and then go after it. Find that most senior person and put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to do that. And regardless of this, if the company's a big one or a small one, there are definitely opportunities out there. Great leaders are absolutely still needed and will always be needed in our business. So go out there and chart your course and become a great leader. I want to thank all of you for joining the podcast today. Jerry, DJ, and Dave, our special guests. It was a good ride, quick ride. Enjoyed it. Those of you that are listening, we hope that you connect with us at arthurkeith.com. You can go there and get contact information for our guests here, as well as our members of the squad. And you can leave questions there, and perhaps on a future broadcast, we'll be unpacking an answer to your questions. So once again, thank you, and look forward to connecting with you soon.
See you next time.
What do you stand for?
Thank you.
Look for us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Find the links on arthurkeith.com. What do you stand for?